Most people think longevity is written in your genes, that it's decided the moment you're born, locked away in DNA you have no control over. That's what most people believe. That's what most people have been told their whole lives. But after more than 20 years studying the patients who quietly outlive everyone's expectations, I can tell you that genetics account for far less of the story than you think. And here is what shocks almost everyone I share this with. The people who live the longest, the ones who make it into their 90s, still sharp, still mobile, still genuinely enjoying their lives, they almost always share 5 specific signs. Signs you can actually see right now, today, in your own body and your own habits. Signs that have nothing to do with luck. My name is Dr. Maya Lin, and I've spent years reviewing longevity research, working with patients across every decade of adulthood, and watching the same patterns repeat themselves again and again. Tonight, I'm going to show you those 5 signs, what they mean, why they matter, and most importantly, what you can do if you're missing one of them. Before we go any further, if aging well and living longer matters to you, hit that subscribe button right now. Every week, I break down what the research actually says about your body, clearly and honestly. No hype, no miracle promises, just the science that actually holds up. Stay with me until the end, because the 5th sign is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one of all. Here's something most people don't realize. Longevity researchers have spent decades studying what are called centenarians, people who live past 100, along with the much larger population of people who live into healthy old age without major decline. And when you strip away all the noise, the supplements, the trends, the miracle diets, what remains is remarkably consistent. The body gives you warning signs and reassurance signs decades in advance. Long before age 80 or 90, your body is already telling you which direction you're heading. Think of it this way. Your body is not a black box that suddenly reveals its secrets at the end of your life. It's constantly sending signals, quiet ones that most people never learn to read. Some of those signals point toward decline. Others point toward remarkable resilience. Tonight, we're focusing entirely on the second kind, the signals that tell you your body is built for the long run. Let's start with the first one. And it's the one that surprises my patients the most, because almost nobody thinks of it as a health marker at all. Let me ask you something. How fast do you walk? Not how far, not how often, how fast? I ask this question constantly, and almost every single patient looks at me like it's a strange thing to measure. But walking speed, what researchers call gait speed, has become one of the single strongest predictors of longevity we have. Stronger, in many studies, than blood pressure. Stronger than cholesterol levels. Here's what's happening inside your body when you walk quickly and efficiently. Walking is not a simple, isolated action. It requires your cardiovascular system to deliver oxygen efficiently. It requires your muscles, particularly in your legs and core, to generate consistent power. It requires your nervous system to coordinate balance, timing, and reaction speed all at once. It requires your lungs to keep up with demand without becoming breathless. In other words, walking speed is a live readout of how well your entire body is working together as a system. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association followed thousands of older adults and found that gait speed alone could predict life expectancy with remarkable accuracy. In some cases, as reliably as a combination of age, sex, and chronic disease status combined. People who walked faster, generally defined as covering more than about 1 meter per second, roughly a brisk walking pace, consistently outlived those who walked more slowly, even after accounting for existing illnesses. Why does this happen? Because slow walking speed is often the earliest visible symptom of something researchers call sarcopenia, the progressive, often silent loss of muscle mass and strength that begins as early as your 30s and accelerates with every passing decade if nothing is done about it. Most people don't notice sarcopenia until it's already significantly advanced because the decline is gradual. But your walking speed notices it immediately. It cannot hide the truth the way other measurements can. So how fast should you be walking? If you can comfortably hold a conversation while walking briskly, covering roughly 100 meters in under a minute and a half, you're in a healthy range. If you find yourself consistently falling behind people your age on a simple walk, or if a short walk leaves you noticeably breathless, that's not just an inconvenience. That's information. And the good news is that gait speed is remarkably responsive to training. Even modest strength training twice a week has been shown in clinical studies to meaningfully improve walking speed within just a few months, at any age, even into your 80s. Does your walking pace surprise you when you actually think about it? Most people have never paid attention to it, and that's exactly why it's such a powerful, honest signal. Now let's move to the second sign, and this one connects directly to something happening inside your hand, of all places. Grip strength. I know how strange this sounds the first time you hear it. How could squeezing something with your hand tell you anything about how long you're going to live? But grip strength has become one of the most studied and most reliable biomarkers in all of longevity science. And the research behind it is genuinely remarkable. Here's the mechanism. Grip strength is not really about your hands at all. It's a proxy for your overall muscular health and neuromuscular function throughout your entire body. When researchers measure grip strength using a simple device called a dynamometer, they're essentially getting a snapshot of your total body strength reserve. Because grip strength correlates strongly with strength in your legs, your core, and your back. A major study published in The Lancet, following more than 140,000 adults across 17 countries, found that for every 5 kilogram decrease in grip strength, the risk of death from any cause increased by roughly 16%. The risk of cardiovascular death increased by a similar margin. This wasn't a small or subtle effect. Grip strength predicted mortality risk more strongly than systolic blood pressure did in the very same study population. Why would something as simple as hand strength carry that much weight? Because low grip strength is one of the earliest, most sensitive indicators of frailty, the medical term for the body's diminishing ability to withstand physical stress, illness, or injury. Frailty doesn't appear overnight. It builds slowly, quietly, over years. And grip strength happens to be one of the very first places it shows up, often before someone even notices they've become weaker in daily life. Here's a simple way to think about your own grip strength. Can you comfortably open a tight jar lid without asking for help? Can you carry 2 full grocery bags from the car to your kitchen in one trip without your hands giving out? Can you firmly shake someone's hand, one with genuine pressure behind it, not a limp, uncertain grip? These aren't just convenience questions. They're functional tests your body is running every single day, and the results matter. The reassuring part is this. Like walking speed, grip strength is highly trainable at virtually any age. Resistance exercises as simple as squeezing a stress ball, carrying heavy grocery bags intentionally, or basic strength training with light weights have been shown to meaningfully improve grip strength within 8 to 12 weeks, even in people in their 70s and 80s. This is not a fixed trait you're stuck with. It's a muscle, literally and figuratively, that responds to use. Now, the third sign, and this is the one that quietly ties everything else together, your resting heart rate. Most people only think about their heart rate when something feels wrong, when it's racing during a panic attack or pounding after climbing a flight of stairs. But your resting heart rate, the number of times your heart beats per minute while you're completely at rest, is one of the clearest windows we have into your cardiovascular efficiency, and by extension, into how long your heart is likely to keep working well. Here's what's actually happening physiologically. A lower resting heart rate, generally in the range of 50 to 70 beats per minute for most healthy adults, typically indicates that your heart is strong and efficient enough to pump a large volume of blood with each individual beat. It doesn't need to work as hard or as often to circulate oxygen throughout your body. Athletes often have resting heart rates in the 40s for exactly this reason. Their hearts have been trained to become remarkably efficient pumps. A resting heart rate that sits persistently above 80 or 90 beats per minute, on the other hand, even in someone with no diagnosed heart condition, tells a different story. It suggests your heart is working harder than it should have to at rest, which over years and decades places additional cumulative wear on your cardiovascular system. Multiple large-scale studies, including research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, have found that individuals with consistently elevated resting heart rates face significantly higher long-term cardiovascular mortality risk, independent of other factors like blood pressure and cholesterol. Here's what makes this particularly worth paying attention to. Unlike many health markers that require a doctor's visit and lab work, your resting heart rate is something you can check yourself in under a minute, first thing in the morning before you get out of bed, using nothing more than 2 fingers on your wrist or neck and a clock. Track it over several mornings to get a reliable average, because it does fluctuate slightly day to day. If your resting heart rate is trending in the wrong direction, climbing higher over recent months without an obvious explanation like illness or new medication, that's worth a conversation with your doctor. But if it's already sitting comfortably in that 50 to 70 range, that's a genuinely reassuring sign that your cardiovascular system is functioning the way it's meant to. And if it's elevated, the encouraging news, again, is that this number responds directly to regular aerobic activity. Studies have shown that consistent moderate exercise, even just brisk walking for 30 minutes most days, can lower resting heart rate by 5 to 10 beats per minute within a matter of months. Now let's talk about the fourth sign. And this one has almost nothing to do with your physical body and everything to do with something researchers used to completely overlook: your social connections. I understand how out of place this might sound in a conversation about medical predictors of longevity, but I want you to hear the actual research, because it may be the single most surprising finding in this entire video. A landmark meta-analysis combining data from 148 separate studies involving more than 300,000 participants found that individuals with strong social relationships had a 50% higher likelihood of survival over a given follow-up period compared to those with weak or insufficient social connections. Let that number sink in for a moment. A 50% difference in survival odds, associated not with a medication, not with a supplement, but with the strength of someone's relationships. To put that into perspective, researchers in that same analysis found that the protective effect of strong social connections was comparable in magnitude to quitting smoking, and it exceeded the protective effect of regular physical exercise and maintaining a healthy body weight. I want to say that again, because it genuinely surprises most people. The quality of your relationships may matter as much for how long you live as whether or not you smoke. Here's why this connection exists at a biological level. Chronic loneliness and social isolation have been shown to trigger measurable increases in inflammatory markers throughout the body, elevate cortisol, the primary stress hormone, and even suppress immune function over time. Researchers have found that socially isolated individuals show patterns of chronic low-grade inflammation strikingly similar to those seen in people with ongoing physical illness. Your body, in a very real sense, registers loneliness as a physical threat, and it responds accordingly, activating stress pathways that, sustained over years, contribute directly to cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and weakened immunity. On the other side of that equation, meaningful social connection appears to do the opposite. It's been associated with lower blood pressure, better regulated cortisol patterns, stronger immune response, and in several long-term studies, measurably slower rates of cognitive decline with age. This isn't about being an extrovert or having a large circle of friends. Researchers consistently find that it's the quality and depth of connection that matters, not the quantity. Even a small handful of genuinely close relationships, people you can call during a difficult moment, people who would notice if something was wrong, appears to provide most of this protective effect. Ask yourself honestly, do you have people in your life you speak with regularly who know what's actually going on with you, not just surface-level updates? If the honest answer is no, that's not a small gap. That's a genuine measurable health risk, one that deserves the same attention you'd give to your blood pressure or your cholesterol. And now, the fifth sign, the one I promised you at the beginning, and the one almost nobody talks about: your sense of purpose. This might sound more like a self-help concept than a medical one, but the research behind it is remarkably rigorous. Multiple long-term studies, including a widely cited study published in JAMA Network Open following more than 6,000 adults over several years, have found that individuals who reported a strong sense of purpose in life, a genuine reason to get up in the morning, had a significantly lower risk of death from all causes during the follow-up period compared to those who reported little or no sense of purpose. This relationship held even after researchers statistically controlled for other health factors like income, chronic disease, and physical activity level. Here's what researchers believe is happening. A strong sense of purpose appears to influence health behavior in ways that compound quietly over years. People with a clear reason to take care of themselves, whether that's watching grandchildren grow up, finishing meaningful work, contributing to a community, or pursuing a long-held passion, are measurably more likely to sleep adequately. Eat consistently, stay physically active, and seek medical care when something feels wrong rather than ignoring it. Purpose doesn't just feel good, it appears to function as a kind of behavioral anchor that keeps people engaged in the small daily choices that protect long term health. There's also a more direct biological piece to this. Some research has found associations between a strong sense of purpose and lower levels of inflammatory markers, better regulated stress hormone patterns, and even structural differences in brain regions associated with resilience against cognitive decline. Purpose doesn't just organize your calendar, it appears to organize your physiology. I want to be careful here because I don't want this to sound vague or unfalsifiable. Purpose in this research doesn't require a grand mission or a dramatic life goal. It can be as specific as caring for a pet who depends on you, tending a garden, mentoring someone younger, or simply maintaining a role within your family or community that genuinely matters to you. What seems to matter most is the presence of a reason, any genuine reason, rather than its scale. So let me bring all five of these signs together, because individually they're interesting, but together they form something much more powerful, a genuine, practical blueprint for the years ahead. First, your walking speed. If you can walk briskly, comfortably holding a conversation, covering ground at a genuinely energetic pace, that's a strong sign your cardiovascular and muscular systems are functioning well together. If not, twice-weekly strength training can measurably improve this within months. Second, your grip strength. Can you open a tight jar, carry your groceries in one trip, shake a hand with real firmness? These small daily tests reflect your total body strength reserve, and they're trainable at any age. Third, your resting heart rate. Somewhere between 50 and 70 beats per minute at rest suggests an efficient, well-conditioned heart. If it's higher, regular moderate aerobic activity has been shown to bring that number down significantly over time. Fourth, your social connections. Not the number of people around you, but the depth of a small handful of genuine relationships. This single factor rivals quitting smoking in its protective effect on how long you live. Fifth, your sense of purpose. A genuine reason to get up each morning, however specific or modest, appears to organize both your daily behavior and your underlying physiology in ways that meaningfully extend healthy years. I want to speak to you honestly for a moment the way I would with a patient sitting across from me rather than a camera. This is Dr. Maya Lin speaking directly to you now, not reading from a list of promises. I've spent years reviewing charts, running numbers, and reading research papers filled with statistics. But what strikes me most, after all of that, isn't any single number. It's how consistently these five signs show up together in the patients who are still vibrant, still sharp, still deeply engaged with their lives, well into their 80s and beyond. And how consistently their absence shows up in patients who declined far earlier than their age alone would have predicted. None of these five signs require expensive treatments. None of them require a prescription. They require honest attention and, in most cases, small, consistent effort applied over months and years rather than days. That's not a disappointing answer. That's actually the most hopeful answer there is, because it means this is largely within your control, starting today, regardless of your age right now. I'd like to ask you something directly, and I'd genuinely like to know your answer in the comments. Which of these five signs do you feel confident about in your own life right now? And which one, if you're honest with yourself, needs some real attention? I have a feeling most people will find at least one that surprises them. If this video gave you something worth thinking about, share it with someone you care about, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, someone whose long, healthy life matters to you as much as your own. And if you're still here with me at the end, do one more thing before you go. Subscribe to this channel. Every single week, I break down what real research says about your body and your longevity, clearly, honestly, and always grounded in actual studies, not trends and not hype. If even one of these five signs made you stop and think tonight, that's exactly the kind of content you'll find here every week. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's keep learning how to protect the years ahead of you. One final thought before we close. Everything shared in this video is based on current longevity research and general clinical observation presented by Dr. Maya Lin. It is educational information, not a personalized medical assessment. If any of these signs concern you, particularly a persistently high resting heart rate or significant physical weakness, please speak with your own doctor who can evaluate your specific situation properly. Take care of yourself, in every sense of that phrase, starting tonight.